Hi friends, in this video I want to show you some things that you can do to refine your pot when it's at the hard leather hard stage. So here is one of the pots that I have. I've got a couple here of things I want to show you. Let me show you what hard leather hard kind of looks like. Now this is a little bit hard to do online because you can't feel this pot, but I want to kind of give you a sense of it. So if I take this pot now and try to squeeze it, notice I'm not going to hold it by the handle because if I do, I might break the handle off. If I try to squeeze this pot now, man, it is really stiff. It does not want to bend at all. If I take my fingernail and put my fingernail in it, I can still make a line. You can kind of see those up there, right? I can still make a line in it. If I push hard enough, of course, I can break this open, but it's more likely to break than it is to bend. So that's hard leather hard. Soft leather hard, this is the little one that I started a little while ago. You can still see it's got some flex in it. It doesn't flex quite as easily as it did when I first made it, but it's definitely still has some flex in it. So some things you can do when pieces are, some refinements are better to do when it's hard leather hard than when it's soft leather hard. So I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do at this stage. Just a quick caveat before I get too deep into that. One of the things that I will say is that none of these refinements are actually necessary. And in some cases, I don't actually think they're worthwhile. So there's something really beautiful about having a mug that has your fingerprints all over it. So remember, we're used to seeing mugs that are made by machines. And so we tend to think that mugs are supposed to be, you know, smooth and perfectly round and perfectly level across the top. But all of those things they're not a bad thing as an aesthetic goes, but there is another way. And really to celebrate that you have actually made it, that this is a piece that's made by a person, by showing the marks of how you've touched it, could be really great. And also can really make a great statement in the glaze, because sometimes you can kind of see those little things in the glaze. So anyway, I just want to encourage you to, before you just leap into thinking, oh, I have to like fix my mug, be sure that it's something you really want to do. Maybe you want to make one that you make really smooth, but maybe you want to make one that's a little bit rougher too. So anyway, just keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this one. I want to show you a different one first. So this is a mug. It's a smaller mug, and I made it and I just rounded it out a little bit to give it a little bit of a bowl shape. I'm thinking this might be a really great little kind of espresso mug. And there's two things I want to do to finish it. I want to put a handle on it like that, and I'm going to put a foot ring on the bottom as well. And that'll lift it off the table, and I think that'll really kind of set it off. Before I do that though, I'm also noticing that the rim is very wobbly. And in this case, I think I want it to be a little bit less wobbly. So I want to add it's now hard leather hard, so it doesn't bend. Note that it's not bone dry too. That's really important. So I don't know if you remember me showing you this in a different video. This is bone dry. Do you see how this has changed color and is lighter than this? Once something is bone dry, there's very little you can do, or basically nothing you can do. There's one tiny thing you can do, which I'm going to show you later, but you really want to catch it before it gets bone dry. But as long as it's not bone dry, even though I can't squeeze it, I can still add clay to this. So I'm going to add a little bit of clay to the low parts of this to get it to be more even across the top. So to do that, I can use my nail, and I'm just going to come to a low spot, and I'm just going to scratch it a little bit on the top. So this is just scoring and slipping. This is actually, you know, there's nothing here that's actually new. I just wanted to show you that it's possible to do this now when things are hard that are hard. Sometimes when I've taught classes in person, students are really surprised when it gets super hard like this, that it's still possible to add clay. Absolutely. So I've got my slip here. I'm gonna put a little slip on those areas, just that part of the mug. And I can do this in parts, I don't have to do it all at one time. I've got some fresh clay over here. I'm gonna move this actually out of the way. And then I'm just gonna make a tiny coil this time. I'm just gonna use my hands, okay? So just a little tiny coil. And I'm gonna add it into this. And I wanna make sure that it gets pushed down really, really firmly. And really, just like before, it needs to mix into the clay that's below it. Okay, now I actually have slightly too much clay over here, which is what I want. I actually want it to be a little bit higher. I can now start to manipulate that and move it around so that things start to become a little bit more level. So that means I'm gonna actually push this down a little bit. And so anyway, when I was doing the coils before, I was doing really, really thick coils. In this case, instead of doing a thick coil, I'm doing a very thin coil just to help me even out the top. And then from there, I can just keep working it like this until it gets kind of close to smooth, and then I'll be at this step. So then I'll have one that's more like this. Now this one, the top is getting much closer to even all the way around. And a lot of people have asked me about how do you get them even across the top. So, oh, where did I do with my popsicle? There it is. Okay, so actually here comes the popsicle stick. So this is a great time for this. The important thing here is that this is a step you don't want to do until it starts to really firm up. And then it's super easy to get it pretty even across the top. You just have to be a little bit patient with it. Now, if you try to do this before, if you try to do this too soon, when the clay is still moves around a bit, it will push around and it'll dig too deep, and it actually doesn't seem to make it better. But if I very lightly take this now and just take the edge of this and just scrape it across the top, and I'm just gonna scrape across the high parts, it'll cut it, it'll shave off little bits of clay. It looks a lot, especially with this color clay, it looks a lot like chocolate shaving. So if you start to do it and it makes little tiny curls, and it actually even feels, if you've ever done chocolate shavings, the clay kind of feels like that too. It's got that same kind of hardness that a bar of chocolate would have. So I'm just gonna take this and just very lightly scrape across the top. And it actually, you probably can't see this so well, but little tiny shavings are coming off of the mug. And that's all you have to do. Once you do that, you can just very slowly work your way around, hit all the high points. If you have a little bit of a low point that you don't want to shave all the way down to, you can just score and slip and take a tiny piece of clay and add it into that spot, just like I did with the other mug. And so just by doing some shaving like this, and some filling when you need to fill, and then a little bit more shaving, and then my secret last step, my secret weapon last step, pro tip, a little bit of water, and just rub right over that where you just shaved down with water. Look out for sharp edges. If you have a sharp edge, just smooth it over with your fingers. If you have a sharp edge now, when it fires, it's gonna be super sharp. It's gonna be super uncomfortable. So, so watch out for that. But anyway, just by shaving it, adding a little coil in the low places, shaving the high places, smoothing it out with a tiny, tiny bit of water, you can really refine the lip as much as you want. That same basic principle applies to the sides of your mugs too. So if you look at this mug, there is, I've done a little bit of this already, but can you see, let's see, yeah, so you can see a little bit of a line that goes through here. I don't know if you, the sun has to catch it just right. And there's maybe even a little bit one right there. If I really, again, I'm not saying that this needs to happen, but if I want to try to get this super duper smooth, I can score and slip and add a little bit of clay in there and just smooth it out. And you can smooth it out with your popsicle stick, or if you have the credit card, you can smooth it out with the credit card part. Not super hard to do. And then you can go back, once you've added a little bit of clay, you can feather it back out, or you can let it dry a little bit more, and then you can scrape it back out. I also have here, do you see when I put this handle on, I have some scratch marks that I made when I scored that are still visible. So I'm gonna take the popsicle stick, and all I'm gonna do is just rub over those spots. Again, not necessary. It might be that you decide you actually kind of like showing that because it sort of shows the process. But if you want to get rid of those, you can just rub them out, no problem. So that is a lot of refining you can do just by shaving and smoothing out with your popsicle stick, adding a little bit of coil, and filling in the parts. So I'm gonna stop the video here. I'm gonna make another one where I go back and put a foot and a handle on that piece that I was showing you a second. So that one's gonna come in just a second. Okay, so refining your mug at the leather hard stage. Enjoy, bye.